back to another week of education, the Teachers Talk Your Terror podcast, where myself, Mike,
and Courtney
are going to talk about another zombie movie. Last week, we talked about Night of the Living Dead, and this week we're going to talk about its step sequel, I'm going to call it, The Return of the Living Dead. Before we get into the plot and all that stuff, kind of a little backstory on this. I think I was telling you about this off air a couple of weeks ago, but John Russo and George Romero worked together on the original Night of the Living Dead. And they had different ideas for the direction of the franchise, so they split apart. Well, the problem is they both kind of own the idea. And so they each wanted to go their own direction with their own zombie movies, but they didn't want to step on each other's toes, which is respectful. So what they had the agreement with is Romero wanted to make his movies like Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Living Dead, Day of the Living Dead. But Russo didn't want to do that. And so, if I'm getting the story correct, what they decided on was Romero could make his zombie movies as sequels to Night of the Living Dead and keep with the time of day motif. Night, dawn, day. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, he could not use Living Dead, which is why those movies are called Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead. Russo, meanwhile, was like, I'm going to make my sequel franchise, and he gets to keep the Living Dead part. And so I don't think it really confused viewers. I don't really know. I mean, I remember all of these movie boxes in the video stores growing up. But I don't think it confused people because you had Night, Dawn, and Day, which makes sense as a trilogy. But then you have Night of the Living Dead and Return of the Living Dead. So it's like whatever path you went down, you were fine. Like it, yeah. And they do both kind of branch off. Dawn and Day are kind of a continuation of Night, where this movie, Return of the Living Dead, actually references Night of the Living Dead. Like they talk about the movie. So it is kind of cool to see two different like sequel stories that aren't intertwined and related. So Return of the Living Dead is my favorite zombie movie. There is no doubt in anyone's mind that this movie is from the 80s.
Yeah. I'm not from the 80s, but I can tell it's from the 80s.
Just like this movie's got everything that's the 80s. Everything. You've got bad acting. You've got practical effects. You've got puppets. You've got movie punks. I love myself a movie punk. And so, Return of the Living Dead. Love this movie. Love the poster to this movie. You've got like punk rock zombies in a graveyard. Like everything about this movie is so good. I love this movie so much. Like I love it so much. We're covering it in my other podcast. Not soon, but like in the next couple of months. Because I was like, I want to watch this movie all the time. We are picking up it's July 3rd, 1984. And we are outside of the tongue-in-cheek named Unita Medical Supply Warehouse.
Yes.
It's out in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh area. And we are introduced to Frank and Freddie. Frank is kind of your on-the-job foreman type. He's been there a while. He knows the ins and outs. Yep. Freddie is the new guy. And we get this fun little scene where Frank is showing Freddie around. And I love it because it's like, it's this medical supply warehouse that like seemingly only has like 2 shelves of medical supplies.
Yeah.
But they have like the rapport with these guys is pretty good. You may recognize the actor who played Freddy. Do you recognize him?
No. Now, if you say that I might, like, if you tell me who, but no.
We have Yeah, we have. We've covered one Friday the 13th movie.
Yes.
And if I remember correctly, was the movie we covered had... Was it... Because, again, they all blur together in my head.
I know.
The Friday the 13th movie that you've seen, is the one we covered have, like, the sheriff's daughter, like, kind of had the hots for, like, Tommy Jarvis, and, like, she kept busting him out of jail.
Yes.
Like, and like,
yes.
they got caught together. Like, she didn't end up dying, but her dad did. He got folded in half. The actor who plays Freddy in this movie played Tommy Jarvis in that Friday the 13th movie.
Okay.
So, with this being, you're getting your education. You're gonna have to start paying attention to these things, Courtney. This actor's prominent.
Okay.
No, he's not. But he's been in things you've seen.
Yeah.
Tom Matthews is his name. So yeah, he's showing him around the warehouse. He's like, you got split dogs for like anatomy, and you've got skeleton here with perfect teeth. You know, it's just this fun little back and forth as he's showing him around. Then they take him into like the corpse room, and he shows them like the corpse that are just hanging like from their head, and it's just kind of what, like, you could tell Frank is really getting a kick out of showing this new guy around. And he takes them down to the basement, and he shows them this military drum of something, and it's got there was a delivery error, and this stuff's called like trioxin, and it's just this, you know, it's just this big like burn barrel looking thing, and it's got like a corpse in it.
Yeah.
You can see it. There's like a glass panel in the top. There's a phone number to call on the side or whatever. You know, and Frank's just showing off. We did have another scene a little bit earlier of, I don't know, maybe it hadn't happened yet, but like, we keep jumping back and forth to this like military guy. Mm-hmm. Well, the military has been looking for this barrel for years.
Yeah.
Now, they don't know where the barrel is, and Frank doesn't know they're looking for the barrel, but we now know. Like, we see both sides of this. Like, the military has misplaced this barrel, and these guys have it. And our movie really kicks off when Frank is showing off. They're even in the office at one point, and he's telling them about the trioxin. You know, and he starts talking about the movie Night of the Living Dead. And he's like, you know, zombies are real, and we've got one in the basement. Like, let's go down and look. So showing him this barrel, and oh, it's so secure. Pats the side of the barrel, busts open the barrel. It's like just the comic timing of it.
Yeah.
All of this toxic gas blows up into their face. Like, they don't blow up. It steams itself into their faces. Unleashes this toxic gas. Then we get this really, really cool like title scene where the dead body inside starts melting.
Yeah. It's just like gooey.
Yeah, it just starts melting. They tell us the title of the movie. This gas then gets kind of like blown, it's blown around the warehouse. And the cadaver that's in that meat locker reanimates.
Yeah.
And so this is where the movie's at, like, boom.
Yeah. It reanimates along with the little dog that's cut in half.
Yeah, I know. And then and then they like beat that dog with a crutch. And it's barking. Oh, I love this movie so much. I may have to move this into my Letterboxd top 4, my top 5 favorites. And so, you know, they're dealing with this. So they call their boss, Bert, and they, you know, bring him down to the warehouse, tell him what's going on. Meanwhile, we meet this really ragtag group of people.
Yeah, they're some of Freddy's friends.
Yeah, it's Freddy's girlfriend.
And they're just kind of a bunch of punks.
Yeah, it's like, but But his girlfriend Tina looks like the girl next door. Like,
yeah,
super sweet looking. Worst actress in this movie by a mile. 2 miles. She's awful. So we meet Tina and like Freddy's other friend. Like his girlfriend is Tina, and his other friends are Spider, Trash, Scuzz. Yeah.
Isn't one Suicide?
Suicide, and then and then Chuck and Casey. And they're so movie punks. Like, you know, just punk rock all day long. Like, Authority's bad. They've all got chains connecting their belt loop to their wallet. Like, it's
the
full
one
blown.
had like the chain from his mouth to his ear.
Suicide. Yeah.
Yeah. Nope. That's uncomfortable.
And you could tell it's like they got daddy issues.
Yeah.
They got mommy issues. Like, these are just rough people. So this is Freddy's first day on the job. And Tina and crew, they're gonna go wait for Freddy to get off work. Mm-hmm. Okay. And they get there too early, so they decide they're going to hang out at the cemetery.
Because they don't want to drive around a lot, but they don't want to wait
gas,
there.
Right.
Yeah.
Suicide he's fiscally responsible.
Yeah, he is.
Inside the warehouse, Bert and crew, Bert, Freddy, and Frank, they decide, let's, they draw up a plan. You open the door. You have this ball bat ready. And I'll tell you the combination to the door, and then when he comes out, you level him with the ball bat, and we'll take care of this. Naturally, that doesn't work. Like,
no.
You know, the body comes rushing out of there, goes straight at Bert, like bypasses everybody. Freddy doesn't even swing the bat.
No.
So they're trying to fight this thing up. They end up getting it pinned down to the ground, and they take a pickaxe. Why they have a pickaxe at a medical supply company, I don't know. But they take this pickaxe and bury it into this corpse's brain.
Yeah, because that is what... oh my goodness. That is what...
that's the rules.
That's what Frank had seen on the movies.
Yeah, that's the rules.
And yeah, like you do it, but it's not dying. Like its body is still like seizing. Right,
which is kind of fun because, again, they've referenced movies don't reference other movies very often. So when this movie references Night of the Living Dead and the rules of zombies, keep in mind this is 16 years later. There have been a lot of zombie movies in the meantime, including 2 Romero. Like both of his sequels came out before this one. There's a lot of rules, and this movie's like, this is how you kill a zombie. Well, it doesn't work, like you said. So then they get a hacksaw and literally like saw the head off of this zombie while it's pinned to the ground. Its body then jumps up.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, and they show like a close-up of the face. Its mouth is still moving. Like, you can't kill this thing.
No.
So they figure out that this zombie's, like, the body can survive independently. Mm-hmm. So Bert has an idea. He calls his friend Ernie. That's right. We have a Bert and Ernie in this movie. Next door is a mortuary because, again, we're by a cemetery. That makes sense. So Bert calls his friend Ernie and says, "Hey, we've got some rabid weasels." They completely dismember the body, like chop it into all kinds of parts, put it in garbage bags. We've got these rabid weasels that we need. We just got to burn them. Just got to incinerate them. It's the only thing that's going to work. Well, the plan sounds wonderful until we realize that it's a toxic gas that did all this to begin with. So this body is full of this toxic gas, and then you're going to burn this gas and pump it out through the chimney. Yeah. Which they do. Well, pumping all this toxic gas up into the atmosphere causes a rainfall, toxic rainfall. It's now raining over the cemetery. Yeah. The same cemetery that Freddy's girlfriend and all his friends are in. Meanwhile, before that all starts happening, we flash back over. Here's another education lesson. Did you recognize? The answer is no. Did you recognize the actress who played Trash? She was the punker that got naked. They got nude and was dancing around. Do you recognize her?
No.
Okay. That is actress Linnea Quigley. You will see her name a lot because she's in a lot of horror films. Do you remember that Santa Killer Silent Night, Deadly Night?
Yes.
She was the topless one that got gutted by the antlers.
Okay. Got
When
you.
Santa picked her up and popped her right up there. That was Linnea Quigley. All 5'2" of her.
Yeah.
So she's in a lot of horror films.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of them. So, and I won't say a lot of them are good.
Yeah.
Most of them are not good, but they're fun.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Linnea Quigley, that's kind of her MO. She really enjoys minimal costumes in her movies. And this one was extremely minimal. I think just a pair of high-rise socks.
Yeah,
for most
exactly.
Of the movie. So she starts doing her little dance or whatever. Tina doesn't want to be a part of that. All this before the rain. Again, everybody's over at Ernie's. Tina goes into the warehouse and goes into the basement. And that corpse that melted over the title sequence is reanimated. And he's a very disgusting looking zombie.
Yeah.
These zombies can talk, by the way.
Yeah. They don't say much, but they talk.
They say brains a lot. So, yeah, Tarman, as he's affectionately called in the horror community, she goes down into the basement, has a heck of a time getting away from him. She's breaking through stairs, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So some of the groups show, well, it starts to rain. So they all, to escape this toxic rain, head over to the medical supply company. Okay? And they hear her screaming downstairs, so they run downstairs to save her, and Suicide gets his skull eaten by the tar man. It's like, just, this movie's nonstop.
Very much so.
Yeah. And this is where one of the guys, Casey, looked out the window, and this is where he saw Freddy and crew. They were going into the mortuary. So now it's raining down all this toxic gas. And so they decide, the crew is like, let's go over to the mortuary. We saw Freddy over there. So they start heading out. At this point, what decisions would you have made about any of this?
I don't know. I would have never gone to the cemetery to begin with. I don't know, at 10 p.m. at night.
It wasn't that late. I mean, he got off work at 7.
I thought he got off work at 10.
Maybe it was 10, but they were there early. They got there at like 7.
Yeah. But anyways, when the sun's setting, I would not have gone to the cemetery. As we discussed a few weeks ago, I am a chicken with that stuff.
Right.
Honestly, I don't know. I probably would have stayed in the medical supply place, but not
even knowing that there's a zombie downstairs that just ate your friend's head.
Just not in the basement. Because this is where zombies, like, again, like, these zombies were a totally different breed than last week's zombies. Like, these ones moved quicker, I felt like. Mm-hmm. And
these zombies were smart.
Yeah. So
very smart.
Maybe I would have left.
Well, they did. They decided, let's go over to the mortuary, because that's where Freddy is. And clearly there's a mess going on at the medical supply company.
Yeah.
So as they start walking through the cemetery to head towards the mortuary, this is where they start seeing zombies coming up out of the graves.
Yeah.
Because in a really cool sequence, the smoke goes up from the corpse that they killed, or they dismembered, and then the rain falls down, and we see it like working its way through the dirt into the caskets, and then out they come, like a cemetery full of zombies.
Yeah.
Trash gets stuck. Like, they're trying, like, Chuck and Casey go back to the warehouse. Suicide's dead. Spider, Tina, and Scuzz make it to the mortuary, and Trash kind of gets stuck in the middle. Now, she had mentioned earlier, if I ever die, I would want. This is how I'd want to go out. I would want a bunch of old men to tear me apart. Well, that's exactly what happens.
Well, you're getting torn apart, Trash.
Yeah, a bunch of these old man zombies just like come on, like just surround her, and she's gone. Like, there's no doubt she's not escaping this one.
No.
She does come back as like super cool, like mama zombie though. Like, Trash is dead, Suicide's dead, and the crew's split up. Chuck and Casey are in the warehouse. Spider, Tina, Scuzz, Freddy, Frank, and Bert and Ernie are all in the mortuary.
The name choice of this movie.
I know,
is just
I love it.
Like, are we even saying real cast names? Because it's like Scuzz, Trash, Suicide, Frank, Bert, and Ernie. Like, what?
I know. That's what this movie's amazing. They're like, we're gonna make a movie and the names don't matter, so let's just call them something stupid.
Yeah. So meanwhile, at the mortuary, paramedics have shown up and they are assessing Frank and Freddy. Mm-hmm. And they are like, they've come to the conclusion their temperature, body temperature is room temperature. They have no heartbeat, no blood pressure,
right.
No nothing. And it's like they're dead, but they're living. Yeah,
and it's tripping up everybody.
Yeah.
Because again, nobody knows about. I mean, nobody's put two and two together about this toxic gas.
Right. And so they head out because they're calling. No, this is where they had learned that all of the bodies are coming back, right?
Yeah. Like Bert and Ernie, they're kind of looking out the window and they realize.
Yeah, so they start boarding everything up.
Yeah, the paramedics are getting ready to leave. Like, they went out to get gurneys because they were going to take Frank and Freddy. They went out to get a gurney, and one paramedic gets in the back seat. Not the back seat. He gets in the back of the bus, and the other one gets in the front seat. And then a zombie comes charging through the passenger door, and this guy's a goner.
Yeah.
And then the guy in the back is a goner. Like,
yeah.
It's... And Bert and Ernie are watching all this happen. And they're like, uh-oh. Like, so they decide, they pull a trick out of the Night of the Living Dead book of, we got to barricade this place. Mm-hmm. We have to.
Yeah, and they're like, how many windows do you have in this place? Like...
Yeah.
I mean, it's a funeral home. Like,
yeah.
Come on.
They got stained glass, and you got the wheeled chapel, the wee little chapel or something like that. But one of the zombies that was eating a paramedic gets on the radio and calls for more paramedics.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool, because it's like, normally, like we've talked before, they're kind of like mindless, dumb entities. These zombies are like, we brains, and then send more paramedics.
Yeah.
And so another ambulance shows up, and these paramedics get out of the bus, and they walk around. They see the other door, and then they're just devoured. Like, it's like they've been waiting in the wings, all these zombies, and then they all just attack at once. And again, Bert and Ernie are like, this is just like, anybody that comes in here is gonna die.
Yeah.
All of them. There's no way. So we have this kind of long, middling scene. They actually set it to music a little bit, where everybody inside the mortuary is trying to keep it protected. The zombies keep eating everybody that shows up. Police show up. They eat the police. Then they call for more police. Then they eat those police. Like, everybody showing up just keeps getting destroyed. Scuzz gets killed because they break through one of the barricades.
Yeah.
Like, reaching in through the windows. Scuzz, who's just kind of there. Like, he really wasn't saying a whole much anyway.
Right.
So Scuzz gets pulled out, and his brain was bitten. Spitting, like, just draining blood everywhere. He never came back to life, which I was kind of surprised. But maybe it's because they already got his brain. But they pull in this upper torso of this zombie puppet.
Yeah.
Which was they drag it in because when they're pulling Scuzz's body back in, she's attached to his head because she's the one that bit him. So then they just chop her in half with an axe. And Ernie now, he's a mortician, so he's a little morbid anyway. He wants to investigate. He wants to experiment. So they tie this zombie torso, and they're talking to her.
Yeah. And it's conversation. Are you in pain? Do you feel anything? No.
Yeah, well,
they feel themselves rotting.
Yeah, and she's it hurts.
Dying. Yeah. But when they eat the brains, it takes the pain away.
Right. It's their medicine.
She had said.
Yeah, so they're, which is kind of an insight because it's so these zombies are not eating brains for food.
Right.
They're eating it as a pain reliever.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, poor zombie. You're already dead, so of course you hurt.
Yeah, and it's they're just misunderstood.
Right. Now to be reanimated to the point that it's now you feel your pain.
Yeah.
Frank and Freddy are even more dead than before. And which I thought was a really cool touch of makeup. They lift Freddy up and he's already got rigor mortis setting in. Mm-hmm. Everything hurts and is stiff. Well, they look at his back and you could tell his blood is pooled.
Yeah.
It's got that really huge bruise, and it's just the science behind that was kind of cool. Because that stuff's real.
Yeah.
And they took that into account. So Bert and Ernie decide we need to lock Frank and Freddy up.
And Tina's not going to let them without her.
Because Tina's an idiot.
Yeah, she's in love with Freddy.
Oh, not my Freddy.
Yeah.
So, fine. We're going to lock all three of you in the chapel. All right. And that's where you're going to go. Freddy dies.
Yeah.
He just, you see him perish, and then momentarily he comes back. And he tells, and it's kind of creepy. He just tells her he's almost euphoric.
Yeah.
And he's like, I can smell your brains. And then it's oh no,
yeah. Then they both jump up.
Yeah, they both jump up, and now it's Tina trying to stay away from Freddy, who is foaming at the mouth. He's full blown zombie now, but he's brand new dead. So he's not missing. He's not rotted. He's not missing any limbs. He's still very high functioning Freddy.
Yeah.
She starts screaming. Bert, Ernie, and Spider are the only three left. They open the chapel because they were messing with what are we gonna do? We know burning kills them, but we don't have enough flame to do this.
Yeah.
Well, Ernie's I've got this acid that'll burn anything. Apparently anything but the glass container it's stored in.
Exactly.
So he just happens to have this jar of acid in his hand when they rescue Tina, and he throws the acid in Freddy's face. Did you notice Frank run out behind him when you watched this? Okay. I didn't see it the first few times I watched this movie too. I've noticed since, but my wife just noticed when we watched it. When all this chaos is going on with Spider, Bert, and Ernie saving Tina, Frank, who earlier in the movie vowed, if I ever turn, I just want to be burnt.
Yeah.
When they were burning that first corpse, he's that's the way to go. He runs out the back. You pay attention, you see him, you see his character run behind the crew. He went around the pews and ran out behind them. And he goes straight to the crematorium. Because he's I don't want to be a zombie. He's still alive enough, I think.
Yeah.
But he knows what's going to happen. So he crawls into the cremator and just burns himself alive. And it's a really sad scene because he never got to go home to say bye to his wife. He takes off his wedding ring and kisses it before he pushes himself into the flames.
It is.
And then even the song they have going is it's called like "Burn the Flames" by Rocky Erickson, which is like this like big time punk rocker guy. I will fully admit I probably have half of this soundtrack in my Apple Music play. I love this. I just love this soundtrack. I love this movie. Yeah, so Frank is gone. Freddy is locked in the mortuary. Mortuary. He's locked in like the parish hall. And there's so much going on in this movie. I feel like we're all over the place because, like, unlike last week where Dawn of the Dead was 7 people are in a house. Mm-hmm. This it's like we really just have a bunch of people locked up in one spot, but there's so many things going on. So Bert and Spider have an idea. They're like, we've got Bert, Spider, Tina, and Ernie left. Ernie broke his foot. Like in the shuffle, he tripped over something, he broke his foot. So Bert and Spider are like, if we can get to that police car, it's still running. That car's still running. If we can get to that police car, we will drive it back up to the door. We'll all 4 get in here and we'll get out. Which makes sense. Yeah. They've completely underestimated how many zombies there are, though. Yeah. They get to the car with no problem. They even get to the door with no problem. But there is no way...
they're getting in.
There's no way anybody's getting in. And so Bert and Ernie take off. Or no, Bert and Spider take off. Ernie and Tina's like, they're leaving us. And Ernie's like, they had to. Yeah. I had to. So Ernie had mentioned earlier that there is an attic to the mortuary, that we could get a ladder, crawl up there, we'll be fine. So that's what he and Tina do. They go hide in the attic and barricade it with a spare board they had in the attic. Good idea.
Until someone attempts to break in.
Yeah, and Freddy makes his way out of the mortuary. He's blinded by this acid, but still fine. But I chalk it up to, because you could almost be like, how'd he find him? He could smell brains.
I was gonna say he smells the brains, because doesn't he mention there like, I can smell your brains, like I know you're in there. Right. Like he knows.
Yeah. Bert and Spider drive away. They try to get away, but they end up going to the medical supply warehouse. Chuck and Casey are still in there. They've kind of barricaded themselves to safety. Bert and Spider work their way into the warehouse. Tarman was still downstairs. They find him. They knock his head off, so they're safe from Tarman. The zombies have taken out the phone line because Casey and Chuck have already tried it. But Bert's like, I've got a phone downstairs. Calls the police, can't get through. Then sees the phone number on... he does get through to the police. But as he's talking to, like, the sergeant that's at a barricade... Right. Like, this is when all the zombies work their way... Like, there's so many of them now. That they overrun the barricade, and Bert realizes, we're toast. Yeah. Like, there's no getting out of this.
So this is where he decides, like, I'll call the number on this, like, toxic gas... acid stuff. Yeah. And he reaches the military.
Yeah, he calls Colonel Glover, who we've seen a couple different times in the movie. Yeah. Because he's looking for this barrel.
Yeah. And I mean he's just like taking all these notes down, like, oh man, I've wondered where this, and they've got a plan though.
I'll let you get to the plan. I've developed a soft spot for this scene where Colonel Glover's on the phone taking notes, because 99 times out of 100 in a movie, you're going to see the conversation, like the camera shift back and forth. You're going to see Colonel Glover ask a question and then cut to Bert answering it, and then cut to Glover asking, and then cut, but this movie, it's like they lock a camera on Colonel Glover for like 2 minutes. Yeah. Of him just going, okay, where are you located? Uh-huh. And then what happened?
Why didn't you call? Like, right. What happened then?
Why didn't you? And it's like, and his wife's sitting there the whole time just watching it. It's just, I don't know why, I just find it so, like, unintentionally funny to be like, you couldn't have, like, you could have spliced their conversations because we know Bert's on the other line.
Yeah.
But they're just like, nope, lock in on Glover. Just stay on Glover. This is funny.
And
anyway,
so,
what's Glover's plan?
They've got a nuclear bomb type thing, and they are going to kill.
Just
blow everything up.
Just bomb the city.
Yeah.
Well, bomb with as few casualties as possible.
Right.
It was Louisville. That's where it was. It was Louisville, Kentucky. It was not Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania was Night of the Living Dead.
And so he had told them, like, hey, everything worked out, because you see after that, just a few people were killed, only a small area was destroyed. Yep. And as he's like talking, thinking like the only outcome of this could be positive.
Yeah, we did a great job.
It starts to rain.
Yeah.
And it shows it again soaking down through the ground.
Yeah, they just reused the footage from earlier.
And you hear screaming in the graves. And it's not over.
Nope, not at all. Not at all. And that is Return of the Living Dead. Oh, I love this movie. I love it even more because as I'm scrolling through the cast list here, of course, we have a Bert and Ernie. The two paramedics that came to check on Frank and Freddie are named Tom and Jerry. Tom and the paramedic, and Jerry the paramedic. I do. I love it. Why not? Like, why not?
Yeah.
So, well, this movie has no lessons.
No, it was just, it was just fun.
Yeah, there really is no lessons.
No.
Like, last week we talked about the lessons of, like, well, what would you do in your classroom? This zombie, like, uprising was so much faster and organized by the zombies, really, that it's like there's no surviving this.
Yeah.
Like, if Night of the Living Dead happened at this pace, no. There would have been no posses. There would have been no militiamen. You weren't going to outnumber the zombies. Like, no, this escalated quickly. Oh, I love this movie. So let's grade it.
Okay, so last week was an A-. This week, I think I'm gonna go with an A.
Good
because it was like, I don't know, I just really liked it. Like watching someone's head get sawn off, taking a saw to the head, and like there was, I don't know, it was an easy watch.
It's just a fun movie.
Yes, it is. And it's like, it's a fun type of horror that like it's not scary, like you're not gonna get scared, but it's like, man, it'd be scary to be in their positions. Like I wouldn't want to be facing Tar-Man.
I agree. Like you feel for them. It's like every corner they turn, they're being ambushed, but at the same time, it's so like unrealistic because you have characters like Bert and Ernie and Tom and Jerry. Like even though they don't play up that in the movie, like you're safe. Like watching it, you don't feel like and it's. I guess the lesson you could take from this is don't always trust the military.
That, or like if something gets delivered to your house and you know it's not for you, please don't call.
Keep it. Yeah, don't keep it. Especially if there's a number on the canister.
Yeah.
No, this movie gets an A+ from me. I've loved this movie since I was a kid. Way too young to watch a movie like this, but I did anyway. I just love this movie. Just love this movie. It's bad when it's supposed to be bad.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it good. Like I told you, my wife even was like, she knows this movie's bad, right? And I'm like, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. This movie is not bad. This movie is exactly what it wants to be. Like, I feel like this, like Dan O'Bannon, the guy that directed this movie and wrote this movie, I feel like this is the exact movie he wanted to make.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't trying to be scary and accidentally was funny.
No.
I think he was trying to do what he did. Dan O'Bannon is kind of a hero. He doesn't get as much credit as he deserves. But he wrote the original screenplay. He wrote the screenplay for the movie Alien, which, again, kicked off, like, the sci-fi horror back in, like, 79.
Okay.
The stuff he's worked on, he went to University of South Carolina with John Carpenter, who we covered in Halloween.
Yes.
And they worked together on John Carpenter's first feature-length movie called Dark Star. He also worked on... he was an animator. He worked on a pretty popular animated movie in the 80s. He's always just kind of making those movies that are just a little out there. Like,
yeah.
You know, he made a movie with a pretty prestigious director called Blue Thunder about a helicopter surveillance team. He wrote a movie called Life Force about space vampires. Which is a lot of fun. He was a consultant for another really goofy 80s movie called Chud. Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers. That's what it stands for. Return of the Living Dead. And then he really hit his stride kind of in the 90s with Arnold Schwarzenegger's Total Recall. He did like an H.P. Lovecraft movie. Like, he's just kind of like always around the fringe. He did like animated work for Star Wars. He wrote a movie called Dead and Buried, which is a really cool 80s horror film, early 80s horror film. Like, it's just, he didn't direct much. He directed 3 movies, and they're all okay, this being my favorite. But he's just kind of like there. He's always one of those guys he's like always involved with things, and it's like everything he touches is just better, but he's never like the main guy, so he never really gets like all the respect. So
he just adds that little pizzazz.
Yeah, so he passed away on my birthday in 2009. So
wow.
Here's to you, Dan O'Bannon. So I love this movie. Love it, love it, love it, love it. I think he may have had a cameo in the movie, and he was eaten by one of the zombies, because he had a quote after this movie. He said, "I spent 37 years of my life not being eaten alive, but now I'm fulfilled. Like, now I've done it." I really enjoy this movie a lot. It was decently successful. $4 million budget, made 14. It has 4 sequels.
Wow.
Which is fun, because the first sequel to this, Return of the Living Dead Part 2, which is kind of corny, but the actors that play Frank and Freddy are both in the sequel, but they're not Frank and Freddy.
Okay.
Which is kind of weird, because it's like, I saw you in the other movie, but...
Yeah.
And so, so we finished this the other day. Are you still on board with my wife's pick?
Yep.
Okay.
I don't know what it is, but I'll say yes.
You'll like it. You will. We finished watching Night of the Living Dead. We finished watching Night of the Living Dead the other night. And after you finish a movie on Plex, it pops up some recommendations similar to. And all the movies that are popped up that are similar to were also directed by George Romero. I happen to have quite a few George Romero movies. They're all recommended because of George Romero. Well, he made a movie back in 73 called The Crazies. Okay?
Okay.
And that movie was remade in...
It was 2010.
2010. And the remake is I would say probably one of my wife's, I won't call it her favorite, but we really like this movie. And so that popped up, and she was thinking to you, she goes, "Ooh, I bet Courtney would like The Crazies." And I'm like, "We'll watch it next. That's fine."
Yeah.
Well, then we watched Return of the Living Dead, and then we forgot what we wanted to watch. So yesterday she's like, "What was that movie that you guys are going to watch next?" And I'm like, "I don't know." We were racking our brain for quite a while. We're talking like 3 or 4 hours. We couldn't remember.
I hate that.
And so that's when I reached out to you. I'm like, did you have a pick for next week? And I told her, I said, yeah, I just asked Courtney if she had a pick for next week. She goes, well, I thought you were going to watch that one. I go, we haven't thought of it. And that's when I texted you back and I said, if you don't have one, my wife's got an idea. So then I told her that. She goes, well, now I have to come up with it. I'm like, you just complained. Like, you just complained because I gave it to her. So we ended up last night just scrolling through the horror section of Plex alphabetically. And then we got to it. She goes, The Crazies. That's what it was. I'm like, yep, you're right.
Is that why you said, I'll spare you the title?
Yes, because we were still trying to come up with it. I'm like, we will find this movie. If not, we'll just pick one.
Yeah.
The Crazies is what we will watch next week, starring Timothy Olyphant, who is a gentleman that if I woke up... You've seen Timothy Olyphant before.
Okay.
He was Mickey in Scream 2.
Okay.
Are you with me?
Yes.
Okay, the co-killer in Scream 2. Timothy Olyphant is one of those gentlemen that if I woke up in the morning and something happened and I just looked like him all of a sudden, I would not be upset.
No.
He's a handsome dude. And so, yeah, Timothy Olyphant plays a sheriff in this movie, and that's all we're going to go. It's a really good movie. Like, it's a lot of fun. Also, like I said, George Romero movie. We're not running with George Romero on purpose. It just happens to be where we're at. And so, if you're okay with that, we will watch The Crazies for our next episode.
Alrighty, I'm good with it.
Sounds good. So, for Education, you can catch us on social media: Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Like, comment, subscribe, all those things you're supposed to do, but you don't. So start doing. We did have a comment on our Barbarian episode.
Woohoo!
Yeah, one of the guys that I'm in a group with in a game I play commented on it. He had asked for a recommendation, and I said Barbarian. I said we're covering it in a podcast, so I dropped a link in our chat, and then he commented on the video.
There you go.
So he's like, we really enjoyed this. So, but yeah, we will be back next week with The Crazies, and until then, you guys have a great time.
Bye.
So for Deducation,
sorry.
It's okay. I got thrown off. We ended that weird. So for Deducation, I'm Mike,
And I'm Courtney.
and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.